Hello everyone, this is Ignatius, and this morning, I am bringing to you a totally new tech and archetype for the Mana Stacking Stormweaver, which still uses Spark, but otherwise is fairly unrecognizable from the other archetypes I've been iterating on this season. Now, I've got a long preface for this video, and let me start it by saying I'm going to show you a very strong build, strongest build I've sort of come across, cooked upon this season. But I'll also say that I discovered it this morning and have taken one pass at getting it online. And ordinarily, I would not push an update, make a video, all of that. But I don't know when I'll be able to get another update out because it's Christmas Eve, holidays are here. I've got little kids and a family. Things are going to be busy. Likely, I won't be able to do an update until next week. And I really wanted to get this out the door because it's really cool and it's really fun and it'll give people something really enjoyable to do if you have free time over the next few days. Okay, so that's kind of my general intro. This is not a refined presentation. This is a first pass at the build. I will likely say something that is outright incorrect in here because some of these are new mechanics that I'm learning. And I will definitely have a significant update to this build with some different items next week after I've had more time to spend time with the build. Now, that's a pretty sad preface, but all that said, this is stronger than anything else I've done on Stormweaver this season, and I've done a lot on Stormweaver this season, so it speaks for itself, and I'll do a solid showcase of the mapping to kind of let the build show you what it does. Okay, so everything revolves around a wand that I discovered existed this morning, and it is called Adonai's Ego. I had to go into the version history to make sure like it actually existed in previous seasons because I had never seen it. And I can't believe I had never seen it because it grants this level 20 Pinnacle of Power, and this skill is the cornerstone of the build. So let me go ahead and pin this up here and we can talk about this as sort of an introduction to the build. I need to spend a lot of time talking about the wand so that you understand the, chain of interactions that happen with this build. So Pinnacle of Power, this consumes all your power charges to master the elements. You gain elemental damage, and then you can apply ailments with all of your damage types. You can only use it while you have maximum power charges. So basically, you're getting 15% more LE damage per power charge consumed. Now, ours is 17% because of the quality, and that matters. And then your buff causes all your LE damage to contribute to Flammability Ignite, Shock, and Freeze. So already, if you understand the different meta gems, you know what we're about to do here. And what really makes this possible, and this is another note, I don't know if this existed previously because it's my first time really doing casters in PoE 2, but Infusion of Power with Stormweaver, where we are doing so many things with infusions, is an obvious chain to this wand and this Pinnacle of Power for a really, really broken interaction empowerment. So we gain a power charge when we consume an infusion, and on Spark Stormweaver, we're consuming infusions constantly. This is just permanent full power charge uptime, basically permanent activation of Pinnacle of Power. Now, the actual wand itself is not, super exciting. We actually lose 10 LE res per power charge we have. I'll talk a little bit about that later. We get an extra power charge on the wand. We get some cast speed, spell skills, max mana, so that way it's not just a big brick. Thank you, GGG, for that. But yeah, that is the opening thing to talk about. From Adonai's Ego, we activate Cast on Crit and Cast on Ailment, and we make them interact with each other, along with Spark and some other things for some activation. So in the current iteration that I'm at, what I'm doing is a Cast on Crit Comet, Cast on Ailment Comet. We're also running a Living Bomb in the Cast on Ailment, which is helping with additional ailment generation. It's also producing a Fire Infusion. The Siphon Elements is proccing so constantly that I think this is going to get swapped out, but it's just where I'm at now. Up here, we're running a Lightning Warp, which does shock stuff and spreads shocked ground. It also has a teleport effect and auto calls enemies for us. The calling effect of Lightning Warp queues, so you don't have to have a cold minion at the same time that your Cast on Crit hits 100% energy. It stores or queues the ability and then calls whenever there's a minion available. I've slowed down videos and watched this happen over and over. It is how it works. And then for the remaining gems, we've got efficiency, pinpoint, and boundless energy. Boundless energy may end up coming off. I did remove the energy retention or whatever it is where you restore energy because we were over procking. And that brings me to the first thing I really want to call out as you understand this build and maybe try to implement it. There is a certain line you don't want to cross with over triggering these two abilities. And I know that maybe sounds a little bit crazy, and I'm definitely not like min-maxed here by any means. These are level 18, these are level 19, like nothing in here is super optimized. And I already went over this line with a previous setup of gems, and I had to hike it back. Because if you over-trigger your mana recovery from the power charges, infusions, kills, and ascendancy and mom, even though it's very high, it's not enough to recoup how much mana you're spending on comets, and it's just too much damage. Even on a boss, you don't need it. And hopefully I'll get a chance to show you if I survive the map in the mapping scene later. Now, that's basically the build. It's Adonai's, it's infusion of power with remnants, and then it's cast on crit, cast on ailment with comets. Everything else is decisions I've made to make that interaction stronger. And I'll talk about all of those decisions as I go through the build here. This is likely to be a pretty long video because I want to cover as much as I can for anybody who really wants to deep dive this archetype over the next week or so and help me and help our community sort of build upon it and make it perfect. So here's some, I'll leave behind like these ideas, and then I'll go through like a whole overview of the build and do a map. A most difficult map I can possibly do is what I'll go for. So one huge thing to call out is balancing spirit versus power. So I started out with a focus. Okay, I need more spirit. I swapped to a guiding palm because I thought that'd be really cool if we could run the gloom guiding palm. It can be run, but then I wanted more spirit for other gems like this Blasphemy Linkup for defense. So then I swapped to this Shrine Scepter, which is 175 spirit. You can find these that go up to 220 spirit. I've also played around with the idea of running a Sacred Flame. The Sacred Flame can get juiced up to 135 spirit with a nice enchant. It's not always that expensive. I've got this locked on 60% as extra fire, but we obviously get a ton more damage with the Sacred Flame, which is kind of interesting. Not going that route yet because I don't need more. I don't know that more damage is really needed, but we'll see. And then, of course, there's flexibility in what spirit gems you want to run. These two are required, so that's 200, and any scepter gives you 200. And your amulet and armor also puts you at over 200, so you're set. The siphon elements should probably be considered required, but I suppose it's really not with how much we are generating infusions from other skills, and you could socket in other skills besides these that generate infusions. Blasphemy Linkup is totally optional, but I love it. It's the best defensive layer in the game, in my opinion, besides evasion. So I just really like having this. And then charge regulation is optional, but this is giving us more critical hit chance while we have a power charge. So it's a permanent 24% more crit hit chance, which is really awesome, obviously, for what we're doing in this build. Some other techs I have going on in here, which you could use or you couldn't use. Mana Tempest is very strong in here. You just sort of pop it when you know you're going to need a ton more damage. We're running it with Morgana's Tempest, so that way the Tempest moves and kind of gets out of our way. So it's like a 2-second buff, and then it resets in 1,000, 1,000, boom, it should be gone. And then we're also running Inhibitor on it. Someone let me know if this doesn't work. But based on all the other interactions I've had with Mana Tempest where it impacts the mana cost of the gem, I believe it maybe works, even though it doesn't say it's working in combat here in the tooltip. It seems like it makes sense that it should, but we'll see. Other attacks, we are running Flame Wall with an Ignite 3 and an Arbiter's Ignition. And this is kind of a cool tech that just gives us an Elemental Archon every once in a while for fun. It's pretty nice on bosses. I kind of like it. I think it's going to stay, but it's definitely optional. Outside of that, we've got your traditional Frostbomb link up. We do have Katal's Rejuvenation here for cooldown recovery on everything. And then we have a non-traditional Spark link up. This is now a utility Spark. So Rapid Casting, Pinpoint, and Pierce. These three are mandatory. Here you could choose whether you want more damage, whether you want more proj, whether you want more proj speed, whether you want more duration, whether you want less cost. These two are optional, but what I have here is Scion's Temper, so that way we're getting 8 additional projectiles and firing in a circle quite frequently. And then here we have Valentius, which is giving us a projectile speed modifier of 149. So basically our spark is, really popping off. And our Arcane Surge gets more powerful as we lose mana, so it goes even faster as we keep going. And you can see we generated all the power charges there, no problem. And we generated all sorts of infusions there as well, and we're just in hideout. The Pinnacle of Power gems, I think, just makes sense. Heightened Charges gives you a chance to double the effect when they get consumed, which is crazy. Perpetual Charge gives you a chance to not remove them. I'm thinking maybe this should come off because, it's kind of nice to remove them because of the downside here, but the uptime is so constant, I don't know if it even matters. This is probably just, totally optional and, a non-issue, non-sequitur, whatever, just pointless to even talk about. But yeah, that's a quick overview of the gems. And just to recap, the first 4 are totally required: Spark, Frostbomb, Cast on Crit, Cast on Ailment. Siphon Elements would be the next most required. Everything down here are optional techs, so you kind of have 5 gem slots, 4 to 5 gem slots where you could decide, innovative, unique things you want to add or try out in the build, which makes it really, really fun. And you can start with this as get out the gate and kind of tech from there, or just start from scratch and see where you want to go. As far as the items, I have basically taken the shell of the Mana Stacking Spark build I've been playing all season and pivoted over to this. And I'm trying to think of what's important to call out. So right here, we've got the Idol of Eshta now. We care a lot less about stacking tons of mana because we're not running Archmage and we're not running the two-handed staff. However, the big mana pool is still really good, and the Mind Over Matter regeneration of mana is probably still the best defensive layer we have because we don't have the skill points to invest into Energy Shield. So I think Mom setup plus mana stacking is still really good. It's just not as much of a priority for damage. So this gives us some more flexibility elsewhere. This Darkness Enthroned is really, really powerful. If you can't run it, you put these 2 runes into your armor. But if you can run it, you are curse immune and you get 30% Mom from the belt, which is awesome. The Warrior could easily be a spirit-based ES chest or whatever you want to do with it. But the Warrior is kind of nice. It solves the Chaos Res. It gives us max mana and it gives us Spirit, as well as 5 sockets to help with our Elemental Res, which is really struggling from Adonai. The Amulet, again, this is the All Skills Spirit Amulet. I talked about how you can get a lot more Spirit here if you can't afford the Giga Amulet here. And then the gloves, Meligaros are finally in my build. I think it makes perfect sense for this build where we're finally leaning on Cast on Crit as a primary means of doing damage. And these have come way down in cost. I think these were 600 Exalts, which is less than 3 Divines. So I'm really excited to have this and be using this in a build. And obviously it's going to work very, very powerful in this archetype. Okay, that's pretty much all I want to say for items. I will say that there is some text on Adonai where if you weapon swap, you lose the buff. So the buff granted by Pinnacle of Power is removed when swapping weapons. So you may be tempted to say, oh, I'll run a Sigil of Power over here, or, whatever. You can't. You could lock Adonai's in 1 and 2, and I don't know if that would reset it. Potentially it could. I guess we could science that and find out right now. Let me lock these, and we'll get the buff going here. Where are you? There you are. All right, buff on, and we'll swap. It goes away. Okay, so you cannot, I just learned, you cannot use weapon swaps if you want to maintain the buff on both swaps. It did come back. You see that? So you could swap and bring it back. You can see the cool visual representation of the buff here. So neat. But yeah, that's something really important to note, that it goes away when you swap back. So you can't just temporarily activate this and then go to another weapon set and do lots of stuff. You could go to the other weapon set to temporarily do stuff, but you lose that while it's going off. And because your damage is meta trigger based, you're losing control of like when you're doing damage and when you're not doing damage, when you're proccing the ailments, when you're not. So just tread carefully if you're going down the weapon swap route. Okay, skill tree, again, very unrefined. I went for things that I knew had really high value for what we're doing, but I don't know if there is a much better way to do it. One thing I'm definitely missing is jewel sockets. I only have 3 in this setup because we're dodging the left side of the tree. So that way we have the points to invest in meta and trigger-based nodes, which are not on the traditional Mana Stacking Spark Stormweaver. We're still running the large radius controlled here for all of these nice nodes. This is like actually really, really helpful for getting lots of different mom effects, for getting extra shock chance and magnitude of shock. This is kind of optional here now, but it's still pretty solid. This wheel here is incredible. This is 120% damage pretty much permanently on our build. So that's fantastic. This is all the mom stuff. And then over here, we've got a Mind Over Matter from Nothing jewel. If you're not familiar with these jewels, you socket it over here. And then you can allocate anything in this radius without pathing to it. And here we get Curse stuff. We get Arcane Surge stuff. We get Power Charge stuff. Crit stuff, elemental damage stuff, and we get magnitude of ailments and erraticism. So some crit chance cast speed stuff. This actually can probably come back now that I'm running the Darkness Enthroned. Increased damage per curse on you. Yeah, I don't think we need this node anymore. That can probably come back. Again, future iterations. Other important things to call out on this tree. Right here, recover max mana when you collect a remnant. Somebody called this out in my stream yesterday. Super helpful for bosses especially. And then we have a lot of availability for more power charges. So this is really important to call out. We're doing things per power charge with this Pinnacle of Power, right? More elemental damage per power charge consumed. And right now we are not maxing out the number of power charges. I've got a +1. I thought this was a +1 here. That's not even a +1. I had at one point a +1 here, and then I had at one point the +2 over here, but I just didn't need that much more damage, and it was crushing my elemental res. I do wonder if there's some way to like weapon swap over, get the max power charges, activate the power. I don't know. There's probably something somebody's going to figure out super broken with like making these work without incurring the Ellie res penalty. That'd be really ideal. But for now, this is kind of where we're at with power charge consumption. We are getting a lot of crit from power charges with these nodes over here. And then if you wanted to take these 3, you get more crit bonus for power charge here, and it's only 3 points. So this is probably a pretty good wheel to consider. And I'm actually only 1 point away from getting it if I hike this energy back and this warding fetish back. But yeah, just a little note on like number of power charges. I'm not going to fix anything right now. I'm just shipping it out as is, as I talked about. Okay, let's move on to the mapping showcase. So, mapping showcases, you got to be careful when you open a video on YouTube and you see some build crushing a map and you're like, oh my God, what is this? You really need to figure out like, what is this map? How difficult is it? Is this really on par with like max difficulty, or is this build just crushing like a white normal map with no effectiveness? To do effectively the opposite of that, I have 3 effectiveness tablets here, which is the way, I believe this is the way to make the monsters a lot harder. We've got an Abyss tablet in here that has increased difficulty and reward for each closed pit. So these Abyss monsters should be extremely hard by the last pit. We've got the Irradiation for plus to monster level. And then I have a 8 mod Corrupted tier 15 Waystone here. I was going to do it in Riverside, but I think it'd be better if I can find a big boy boss to fight on this. Like something like this, the more powerful boss. Oasis. Oh, that's that desert serpent. Grotto? Did I fail this? Nope. Grotto. Grotto will be good. Be good to me, Grotto. Okay, gameplay. Here, I'm going to activate and turn this off. Okay, gameplay. What are we actually doing with this build? So we have to, for some reason, the Pinnacle of Power always unspecs from my bar. If anybody knows how to fix that, let me know. That'd be great. But basically, we're going to generate power charges. We're going to do it by collecting infusions. You can see they're going up right here. And then we're going to activate Pinnacle of Power. It's turned on. We look really cool. Our charges didn't even get consumed. Now that we activated Pinnacle of Power, our Cast on Crit, Cast on Ailment stuff is online. And now we just basically rotate as we want to through these skills. You can pretty much just walk the map in Spark if you want to. The Flame Wall will consume a Lightning Infusion, give you the Archon buff, ignite enemies, and infuse your sparks with fire and lightning. So it's very powerful. Cast pretty quickly. And then the Frost Bomb is infusions on demand. So if for some reason you need them to get the power charges to get going, you could do that. You shouldn't. The Siphon Elements should keep you going the whole time after you get this initial duration going. But just in case, it's there. And then the Mana Tempest is just like, you know, when I get to the last Abyss mob, if I even survive that long, and they're starting to come out and they're starting to pile up, I'm just going to shoot the Tempest out and take that damage bonus for the remainder of the fight. So that's kind of how the different skills work. And that's kind of what's going on with the interaction between the skills. It sounds very confusing, but the way it plays is so powerful. It's actually pretty lightweight. Way more lightweight than like your normal Spark Stormweaver. And I think you'll enjoy watching it in action here. I'll try and shut up a bit so you can just enjoy.
Haunted machine.
Those minions should be illegal in Ritual. I had to say it. I was trying not to say anything, but I had to say it. Kind of interesting, like the Spark itself, the wand is so powerful. It needs to be nerfed, obviously. The Spark itself is like powerful enough that I don't actually need all the trigger stuff, but of course it's amazing. Alright, we're coming up on our first Abyss here. I totally expected I could die in these. Like, I'm so not optimized. My resists are 34 right now. But hopefully I'll survive.
Not yet.
Gone. Look at that. Alright, that was Abyss 1. Remember, they're going to get harder as we go, so... Look at all the remnants on the ground. This is ridiculous. I was going to take a look at my Mana Tempest to see if it's showing any buff. It doesn't show a buff based on the inhibitor. Just seems like it should work, though, right? Pretty much the only thing you got to pay too much attention to is, of course, your mana pool. But this timer right here, you just don't want that to run out. And it really shouldn't. Like, the uptime is really high on it, but, you know. On the list of things you actually do have to pay attention to in this build, if that thing runs out, everything's going to shut down. Too bad we can't put Pinnacle on a meta skill, and then we could just walk through the map. Okay, boss time. Don't kill me, boss. I got a whole map left to do. I shouldn't have come in here. I don't have any, like, cast on Ellie, like, self-cast Ellie weakness or anything. That stuff would all probably be pretty good. But yeah, once it gets going, should be pretty strong damage here. Fantastic. Hopefully that was like 4 seconds or less, which is kind of the timer duration. Ran out of mana there. That is a concern to me. You can consume the Pinnacle in the middle of that fight to generate tons of mana. Remember, we have this node over here that's recover mana when you consume, and it's at 9%. So it's per power charge consumed, right? We'd be consuming 4, 5, maybe 6. Could be like an insta recover your mana pool on bosses. which has been a big problem for me all season, mana pool on bosses. Now, it's probably unnecessary. I'd have to go back and look at the video of that boss fight, but I bet he was frozen because our ailment magnitude is so high with this ability. That's another huge defensive layer on the bosses. That's awesome. This build is making the fully juiced effectiveness Abyss look like it's white maps. We have, okay, we still have some Abyss left somewhere.
I need more time.
That's a big boy.
I need more time.
Gone. Big boy gone. All right, this might be our hardest Abyss. I'm excited. That was our hardest Abyss. It felt like nothing. It felt like nothing. Okay, that'll be the end of what I'll show off here. I think that was a very good example. I don't think I came close to dying at all. I want to reiterate that this Blasphemy link up is really good. I have LE weakness here for like kind of laziness, just see if it works, but you could put Enfeeble here if you want it to be even stronger. The Heightened Curse increases the cost of this thing a lot by 45. So realize that if you're running into spirit issues, this is a big reservation multiplier. Also realize that the quality on this makes the efficiency of each gem from 60 to 65. So that's really important as well. Okay, I thought this video was gonna be like an hour long, so it looks like I'm gonna come in under 30 minutes. Obviously, lots more to do in min-maxing this build, but also obviously it is doing the most difficult content quite optimally already after a first pass. I think that speaks to how ridiculously powerful this item is and how incredible this pinnacle of power buff is. So I'm super excited to keep working on this build. I think the power level is such that I don't need another build to work on this season. It's going to be all about optimizing speed and mana uptime on bosses, and then just like coziness of play, like as lazy as we can get it, the better, because this is going to be that kind of build. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have questions or comments, leave them here on YouTube. I look at all of my comments and I try to respond to all of them, the good ones and the bad ones. Some people, flame me to the moon. Some people say really nice things, and I appreciate all of it. I welcome criticism. I welcome, constructive stuff, and I welcome, that this was valuable, good feedback. Come on over to the Discord. I'm going to continue to iterate on this build in this channel here, Spark Infused Comet. It's basically still what we're doing. And it's still the mana stacking shell. We're just doing things a lot better and shooting lots more comets. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching this video and for all the collaboration so far in this season.